folks, we got Brad the Butcher live, first installment ever. I am Brad Butcher. We've got a special guest, Wayne Langby. Today we're going to be talking about issues with accessibility for those with disabilities in higher education. Wayne, how have accommodations for those with disabilities evolved over the years? Can you give us an example, please?
I'm sorry. All right. I'd say over the years, after the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, was passed, that many deaf people now have accessibility to anything such as athletics and academics, and doctor's visits and so forth. Many deaf people, including myself, have actually suffered through a lot of things over the years. So after that point, the day of the TTY, which used to be a teletypewriter, where you used to actually have to go through a relay service in order to talk to somebody else. And growing out of that, we actually previously had to rely on our next door neighbors, basically, to make our own doctor's appointments and so forth. So throughout history, people have had to go through these different steps. And as far as higher education is concerned, I went to Gallaudet University, which is in Washington, D.C., which is the first deaf university for deaf people. And a lot of deaf people do choose to go there because there is accessibility there. And there are better resources at that university for deaf people in particular.
Folks, Brad the Butcher, we're back with Wayne Langby. We are discussing accessibility for those with disability in higher education. Wayne, how do actual accommodations stack up for those that are required for those with disabilities?
Well, previous to applying to this IAL program, I actually had to see if this was going to be worth me coming here. And it was the University of Washington has a DRS office, Disability Resources Services office, where they provide accessibility to all individuals who have disability needs, to provide accessibility for their classes. And so I checked in with the DRS office and saw that I would be able to use those services here under the University of Washington's policies. So currently I have interpreters with me here. And so far they've been actually meeting my needs and I've been very happy so far in the program. And that was definitely why it's been worth me coming here for the master's here, in particular at University of Washington.
That's great. Happy to hear that. Would you, by chance, have any examples of where accessibility just didn't quite cut it? Do you have anything about that?
Yes, I do. There's actually a recent example that I heard about. There was an applicant who was hard of hearing, who had applied for medical school. And in the spring, they got their acceptance letter for the fall of that year. And then they requested a captioning services as well as note-taking services. And the medical school actually refused to provide those services because they didn't have the resources or funds in their language. So he decided not to join that program and then looked for more sponsorship. And later on, everything seemed to be in place. And when the spring came around, he was actually rejected. His application was rejected.
Wow, that's something else. Do you how's this case playing out right now?
I wouldn't be surprised if there is some action being taken currently because it just happened here in Washington State. And under the Rehab Act, with those provisions, there may be action being taken. It's similar to other issues that have occurred in other states. There are sometimes issues with resources when you talk about a smaller school compared to a school that might be larger with much more resources. And it can be a very big struggle in dealing with those smaller schools and smaller universities, especially for a deaf applicant in a small area. That can be a very difficult, challenging experience. And it's usually because of resources.
Well, that's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on as things develop. Now, Wayne, I know I kept you, but one last thought regarding resources for those with disabilities. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
As talking about the Disability Resources Center, that doesn't just only apply to me, but to anyone else who might be deaf, blind, someone who might have a learning disability, someone who might have a physical mobility issue in a wheelchair, and so forth, the gamut. And so we all need to have accessibility, and the University of Washington believes that everyone has equal access, should have equal access.
Cool. This has been Brad the Butcher, special guest Wayne Langbein. I'd like to thank you once again on behalf of Brad the Butcher Live. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks so much for coming.